Wow, I'm live. Good morning, folks. This here is some more of my random ramblings coming to you live from beautiful downtown Crestline in the San Bernardino Mountains of Southern California's Inland Empire. We had a really big blast of a storm yesterday. I could bear well, most of the day I couldn't get on the internet at all. So I'm amazed that I'm on this morning. I have put up uh, my recipe that was requested last time. Uh, Last week I couldn't do my show, so it was 2 weeks ago. My soup recipe. My soup recipe is on my blog. And I'm typing the Earl. Come on. The letters P and A don't like to work on my keyboard. I think my fingers aren't hitting them right. The little pinky fingers. I took a crash course in typing in the summer before 9th grade. Now let's see if I got this link right. Yes. Good morning and welcome, Gil. There will be an unboxing video of sorts. I still need to get someone to help me move the desk so it has a good spot, because I don't like to move a desktop PC around. The laptop is made for being moved around, but the desktop should sit in one spot and not move unless absolutely necessary. I wasn't sure that I'd have a good enough internet connection to be on live today, but so far it's working. I'm amazed. It has been literally freezing overnight. 32 Fahrenheit, 0 centigrade. Or do you call that Celsius now? There's a difference, but I think it's just a different word for the same thing. Don't forget to put a screen in front and behind my fans so my kitty's hair doesn't get in the... Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm sure my old desktop is full of cat hair despite all my efforts. But, I used it for 5 or 6 years before it started going grind, grind, crunch, crunch, because it had the kind of hard drive that spins. They always wear out eventually. I am blessed to have such good friends to get me a computer. Yesterday I had to brave the storm along with a friend who drove me to a local office. They have a grant to help people pay their winter heating bills. They'll probably, they said they'd call me in a few days, but they'll probably send $50 to the gas company, which will help because my next bill will be a little over 100. Good morning, Witta and Doggerland. Let's see. I'm typing. I've never really mastered the type and talk at the same time deal. Yes. Oh, wow. Talk about climate change, Doggerland. The sea between England and Denmark used to be land. How many SUVs were we driving in the Middle Ages? How much oil were we burning? How many carbon emissions did we have from coal burning power plants? Piffle. Climate changes. That's what it does. And we need to develop strategies to live with it because we can't control it. I suppose if you went up into space and put a screen in front of the sun, you could cool off the earth. But, since such things are done by governments and we know how efficient governments are, they'd probably plunge us into an ice age that we'd never crawl out of. Let me refill my water. It's almost empty. Okay. Dum-de-dum. Dum-de-dum-de-dum. I'm still surrounded by kipple, but I'm getting a handle on it. There are empty spots here and there where I got rid of boxes of stuff. I was going to talk about materialism today. It just doesn't work. The materialism which grew out of the scientific revolution of the 1600s and came to full bloom in the late 17 and early 1800s is nothing but a replay of the ancient Greek philosophy, which was based not on observation, but on sitting around thinking, what is the most logical? Well, gee, the planets must move in perfect geometric forms, and the most perfect form is a circle. Therefore, planets move in circles. We don't have to observe them to come to that conclusion. Well, then Copernicus, who, by the way, was a Catholic, I think, priest, anyway, an official, a church official, looked at the planets and said, no, they aren't. They aren't moving in perfect circles, and the sun doesn't go around the earth. He was not persecuted. He was not killed. Then along came guys like Kepler, the astronomer who worked out the mathematics of the elliptical orbits of the planets. He was not persecuted. He was not killed. He died of a fever. Now, Galileo was put under house arrest, primarily for calling the Pope ignorant and stupid. Yes, Cardinal Sin, a technician might come in handy, but I can handle the computer myself. In fact, through networking, I've found a local technician who will come at my convenience if I need him. I'm not exactly a Luddite. I just play one on TV. In fact, a friend who finally got a cell phone. Well, she did have a prepaid flip phone for a while, but she after the first $10, she never renewed it, and all it did was phone calls. She just got a real cell phone, a smartphone, and she keeps asking me, how do I do this? So I guess I do know a little. I just refuse to put apps on my phone. I do have a weather app. That's it. My tablet has a solitaire game. But yeah, I kind of know a little. I once studied computer, one of those mail order courses. You learn how to build a computer and how to program it. But that was back in the days of basic programming. I learned a bit of basic, but nobody uses it anymore. And then I started to learn, I think it was COBOL. And while I was still learning it, oh, we don't use that anymore. So I gave up. It's like, hello, I'll need a PhD in mathematics just to program my little Commodore. Never mind. Or a home built computer made of parts by my own hands. Too much trouble. I am aware of the 16-digit code in computers are binary, but some codes are they're base 16. But I only have 10 fingers. I like the number 10. There it is here. Well, this thing around my neck is really cool. It has bean bags that you heat up in the oven or the microwave for your achy neck. There's many different brands, and I'm not sponsored, but if you can find one of these neck thingies, oh, it really does relieve a stiff neck. I'm cutting down on the coffee, but I have tea this morning. Okay, materialism. There are well-known scientists. Hi, Howard. Howard's in the chat too. Scientists today and journalists and recognized experts who insist that the mind does not exist. It's simply a way of talking about the brain. Everything is the material substance in your brain, which, by the way, is a big load of fat. Your brain is made of fat. One reason why I refuse to go on a low-fat diet. The other reason is I need to gain weight any way I can. But yeah, we can find specific spots in the brain that'll move your arm or your leg, make you say a word, maybe even evoke a memory. But we haven't found any part of the brain that does mathematics. That thinks about life and philosophy and God. Yeah, I guess the brain could be cholesterol. That's a type of fat, Howard. Newton was also a Hebrew scholar. Newton wrote more about the Bible than he did about science. He also found a way to detect counterfeit coins when he was in charge of the treasury. It was a big problem in his day. Anyway, your brain does a lot. It's like a computer. It doesn't think. Your mind thinks. They say language, music, and math are all located in the same part of the brain. Well, the thing is, when they do these experiments, now they don't have to open your skull. They put this helmet thing on and zap different parts of your brain. They can't, like, zap this part of the brain and you start doing algebra. Doesn't happen. They can't zap this part of the brain and you play the violin. It doesn't happen. Those parts of the brain recognize math and music and language, but they don't create it. Functional MRI, yes, functional MRIs are very interesting. I think it was around 2005 or 6. A doctor named Owen took a patient who was, what's the word they use? In a vegetative state with massive brain damage. Considered basically a vegetable, no brain function. Put her in a functional MRI. And asked her questions. And in response, he asked her to imagine that she was walking and a certain part of the brain lit up. It had increased blood flow, as shown in the functional MRI. And he also tested 15, what he called normal people, and they showed the same pattern. He asked a neurologist to examine the MRIs and see if he could tell which one was the patient in the vegetative state, and he could not tell. Well, the criticism was, well, maybe her brain is just reacting to the sound, and she didn't understand the question. So he did further experiments on the patient plus the 15 normal people and used the same words but mixed up the order so that what he said didn't make any sense. Her brain didn't respond, and the 15 other normal brains didn't respond either when the syntax was not, didn't make sense. There was no meaning. So it wasn't the sound. And other researchers have done similar research in which they ask patients, both normal and those in a vegetative state, to do simple arithmetic. For example, they'll say, what is 8 plus 6? And then they'll give 3 different choices, because the person in the vegetative state can't talk. And the brain will light up when they say 14. because that's the right answer. And the normal brains light up in the same way when the right answer is spoken to them. So there's something going on that's more than the brain. They're disconnected. In a vegetative state, you're disconnected. Many people can't even move their bodies. The most famous case, of course, is Terri Schiavo, whose husband wanted her to die because he couldn't remarry as a good Catholic while she was alive. Now, if I faced that choice, I'd say bye to the Catholic Church and get married, but no, he insisted on removing food and water. She was able to eat and drink, but she couldn't lift her hand to put the spoon or cup to her mouth. But she could swallow. And it made headlines, but the court sided with the husband, claimed that she was brain dead, therefore she was already medically dead, even though she wasn't dead. And despite public outcry and rage, she was killed by withholding food and water. Too bad they didn't put her in a functional MRI and actually find out if anybody was there. Yeah, she couldn't get up out of bed, but when she was placed in a chair, she could sit up. And it no longer shocks me to learn that Dr. Fauci sponsored experiments in which puppies were tortured. And they weren't even important studies. Yeah, well, I think vegetative state just means the doctors don't want to deal with you anymore. There are many, many cases of people who suddenly woke up after years in a coma and told everyone they could hear everything that was going on. They just couldn't respond. Their brain wasn't connected. Their mind wasn't connected. I'm convinced that we are more than our bodies. Our bodies are wonderful animals that carry us around and bear our suffering and share in our joy. But we are more than that. Well, I hope doctors quit making dirty jokes in front of patients they think when they think they aren't being heard. I had a weird experience once when I had a tooth extracted under general anesthesia. I am certain that I heard someone in the room tell the oral surgeon that he was doing something wrong. And afterward, I had to get additional medical treatment because he had done something wrong. And it was very painful. Yeah. Well, Terry Schiavo might have been actually dead for all intents and purposes, but nobody went the extra mile to make sure. She was inconvenient. And that's the real reason she had to die. It was inconvenient. And we can't be sure without the functional MRI on the living person. Autopsies. Yeah, autopsies. Yeah, okay, her brain was half the size. It shrank. That's probably a good indication, but there's this famous Japanese artist. He got a headache and they x rayed his head, and he literally had half a brain. One hemisphere was missing. I think it was the left hemisphere. He was born that way. Didn't even know it. He was perfectly normal and brilliant. You know, if we have to put down a dog or a cat, we do it humanely as possible, with an instant uh, injection that acts fast. We don't starve them for a week until they die of painful thirst, mostly thirst, but also hunger. We are more compassionate toward murderers on death row. Oh, poor kitty, Gil. I'm sorry. I had to have my dog put down. He was the only reason he stayed alive was because he loved me, and I couldn't bear to watch his pain. He was very old and very ill. So for a week beforehand, I gave him all the things he wasn't allowed, like hot dogs and, people food, and just loved on him as much as I could. But they injected something into a vein, and he just instantly, poof, was gone. He did yipe at the injection, but it was as humane as possible. I miss my dog. I really do. It wasn't fair to him. When I was younger, I thought that if I were in that situation, I'd want them to do everything possible to keep me alive because I had more to do. And I'm still leaning that way for myself, but we'll see what happens when I'm 80 or 90 years old. I might have a different opinion. Hi, Vikan. We're talking about brains and minds and materialism. There's something cruel about materialism. I notice it in the literary genre we call naturalism. Jack London is an example, but he isn't so bad, except the one story to build a fire in which the guy is foolish. He's in the Arctic and he goes off on his own, and there's a storm, and he's trying to build a fire to stay alive. And of course, he fails. and dies, freezes to death, because that's how the genre of naturalism works. Theodore, oh, what's his last name? Oh gosh. I want to say Stryver, but that isn't it. Well, maybe it is. Let's see if my internet will allow me to Google. Dreiser. Theodore Dreiser. My voice just kicked in, or my mind did. Theodore Dreiser. Come on, let's get the spaces where they belong. I forget the title of the novel they made me read. But in it, the people who were low class and not related to the elites always were evil and came to a bad end. Even when they tried to be good, it didn't work out for them. That's naturalism at the extreme. He'll actually make you feel sympathy for the bad people, but he still kills them off in very brutal ways. And the one character who pretty much succeeds and ends up with a good life, it's because she's really a member of the higher classes who just by circumstance ended up having to work for a living. Beyond Naturalism, Gil, is that a book that I can seek out? It's amazing to me that the Romantic poets, to some extent, worked kind of overlapped with the naturalism, which arose mainly in North America. Of course, William Blake's a lot earlier than Theodore Dreiser, but we've got Milton and Shelley and Keats and others. Oh, Theodore Dreiser wrote it, eh? Cool. I don't like Theodore Dreiser's message, but he was a brilliant writer. We've got this conflict not between church and state. As one might think. I mean, look, the Supreme Court still has the 10 Commandments posted. And the ceiling of the Capitol building, I think the mural is Moses. I'm not sure, but it has a religious mural in the dome. What we have is atheism versus theism. Speaking of Shelley, oh yeah, it's not exactly prevailing wisdom, Gil, but it's a growing movement. Shelley wrote Frankenstein. Well, I'm sure Shelley edited Frankenstein. However, in their time, Mary Shelley's novels were more or better than Shelley's novels. He was a great poet. Yeah, Mary Shelley grew up in a household where she was homeschooled and had access to a vast library because her parents, William and Mary Godwin, were great scholars. Yeah, she didn't go to the university. Whoopee. Neither did Philip K. Dick. He after one semester he gave it up. Uh, but I think the story is obviously Mary Shelley's warning to Percy Shelley about the consequences of his obsession with the occult. I think it's Mary Shelley saying, see, this is how you're going to end up. And I'm sure that Percy edited it. But you know what? It isn't a very good novel. I didn't enjoy reading it. And she has this man who's a scientist and he's creating life from a dead body. And when he sees this creature come to life, he screams like a woman and runs away. Now, that might seem sexist today and unacceptable, but in their time, a man would not have had his male character shriek and run away in terror. That was written by a woman. Yeah, many first novels aren't very good. That's why I killed my first novel. I got more letters. I hope to find them now that I get to reorganize all the things that got messed up. I'd get letters from editors. On the level of a sentence, you write very well, but this story just isn't going to keep the reader's interest. Stage play. Well, there have been some good movies about Frankenstein and about the Shelleys, but really, why does that look blue? That blue stuff you're looking at? It's cream colored. My camera's weird. Okay. Anyway, DC Fontana. Yeah, she had to use DC because people wouldn't, or at least the producers thought people would not accept a woman writing science fiction. And there's a good one. Another famous writer. I'm blanking on the name. Phil wrote a fan letter to him, and she wrote back, that's my pen name. Can't remember the name. I think Phil already knew that. He just liked to play games. Oh, yeah. I think without DC Fontana, Star Trek would have been a flop because Gene Roddenberry was a hack. He was a great fan, but he was not a great writer. And more than one author accused him of plagiarism for his Star Trek scripts. I think one of the best Star Trek episodes, I think it was written by Harlan Ellison. really ought to be made in a movie. I think it's the one where Captain Kirk falls in love with the Salvation Army lady. James Tiptree Jr. Yeah, Alice Bradley Sheldon. Thank you, Gil. I got to meet oh, Catherine. Why am I blanking on these names? There was a famous couple who wrote science fiction. Catherine, oh, geez, my brain's. Well, I got to meet one of the luminaries of science fiction when she was very old. I didn't even know who she was, but I soon found out. She wanted to meet Philip K. Dick, and it was her last science fiction convention because her new husband wanted her to quit all that nonsense. Andre Norton was Alice Mary Norton. Well, I always knew that Andre Norton was a woman. In the 60s, I guess it was okay because it was juvenile fiction. Anyway, C.L. Moore, Catherine Moore. I'm still blank on her husband's name. Henry Kuttner. He had died by the time I met Catherine Moore. But she was C.L. Moore because they didn't want a woman writing science fiction. But once I knew who she was, it was amazing to me that such a great author wanted to meet Philip K. Dick before she gave up science fiction. There's only one Ursula K. Le Guin. Yeah. Apparently, she and Phil were great friends, even though they disagreed philosophically and politically. Here's an illustration of how naive I was. I didn't realize until I read some book reviews. I read The Left Hand of Darkness, and I had no idea that the characters were gay. Didn't occur to me. It was just a really good novel. But I really liked the one, blank on the title, of course, where the man dreams and his dreams come literally true. So his psychiatrist, a woman, of course, guides him to dream good things instead of bad things. I can picture the cover of the book, but I can't read the title. There was a PBS movie made from it that was very good. Can't for the life of me come up with the title, but that was Ursula K. Le Guin. When Phil's movie deal was made, Ursula sent Phil a big bouquet of red roses. Yes, he dreams aliens on the moon. That's right, Gil. Can't come up with the title, though. Oh, well. She lived in Portland about And about 20 minutes before the movie was about to start, a massive storm knocked out the power, and she didn't see it. Oh, Gil doesn't remember the title either. That's a shame. Wow. Now, you won't find Ursula Le Guin being a materialist, obviously. If you can dream things into reality. But there are these, okay. My brain always goes over to Hawkins. This guy's name is Hawken, and I can't come up with his first name. He isn't really a scientist, he's a journalist, a science journalist. Militant atheist. He said, if you believe in God, you're well, basically you're stupid or misguided or maybe evil. I'm like, what? Yeah, atheists can be good people, and Christians and Jews and Muslims and Buddhists and so forth can be bad people. But they're people, not God. We're flawed. Yeah, I think maybe the Twilight Zone movie with the boy who put the man in the cornfield and all that. I think they ripped off Ursula K. Le Guin when they had his teacher have him create a world of rainbows and butterflies. Yeah, well, Billy Mooney played the boy in the TV show. It's a Good Life, yeah. Well, they used that episode in the Twilight Zone movie, the first one, the good one. My favorite part of that movie, by the way, is on the airplane with the gremlin on the wing. I used to think that William Shatner had done a better job in the old TV episode till I saw it again. Yeah, he's a good actor, but I think the movie did it better. And I don't blame the actor, I blame the script. Anyway, let's see. Oh, yeah, Bill. He likes to be called Bill now. He's a grown-up, not a little boy. Bill Mooney was on Coast to Coast before it devolved into it fell into the gutter. Bill Mooney brought his daughter back to the series reboot for It's Still a Good Life. Huh. Interesting. See, I'm not all that knowledgeable about science fiction specifically. Tora, come here and say hi to your adoring fans and quit pestering me. She wants treats. If you want treats, you have to say hi. Okay? Good girl. Yes. Oh, by the way, good girl means treats. Good girl. Kitty cat. Okay? Usually, Sweetie comes around when she hears me doing this. Not today. I guess she really doesn't want to be on YouTube. Oh, you get Facebook messages from Bill Mooney, huh? Cool. All right, what the hiss does my phone want? If the Amazon treasure truck is within 50 miles of home, they send me a text message that I can buy some gadget I don't want or need at a really great price. I'm going to have to find a way to turn that off. Anyway, I think that most atheists are actually, at least in my experience, the ones I've met, they're angry with God. They're withholding their belief. There she is. Hi, sweetie. Bye, sweetie. They're withholding their belief because they're angry. And they know that that's the one thing God wants most is faith. Believe in him. And it comes down to suffering. And I haven't heard a good answer to all the suffering we see in this world. God's answer is in the book of Job. Job wants God to tell him why he had to suffer and lose all these things. And God says, well, where were you when I laid the foundations, and on and on and on? You know, where were you when God made this world? Well, supposedly it all began in a big bang, and the scientists fought tooth and nail and continue to fight against the Big Bang theory. The term Big Bang was an insult they slung at the few scientists who said, well, hey, wait a minute. If the universe is expanding, it must be expanding from something. Even Einstein and, I forgot the English scientist's name. Well, anyway, even Einstein believed that the universe was eternal and stable and self-existent, didn't have a beginning. But Hubble, who, by the way, was not an astronomer, he was a lawyer who took up astronomy as a hobby. Around 1920, he discovered that the Andromeda Nebula was not part of the Milky Way. It's a different galaxy, not part of our galaxy. The astronomers used to believe that the Milky Way was the whole universe, our galaxy. That's it, nothing else. And then Hubble discovered that all of these galaxies are moving away from us. The universe is expanding. So some other scientists went, well, hey, wait a minute. What's it expanding from? And so you get the reverse of the expansion down to a single point. And according to Einstein's equations of relativity, general relativity, At that point, there would be no space, no time, no matter, no energy, zero everything. And the scientists didn't like that, still don't like it, because where'd that come from? Well, to my mind, the Big Bang sounds a lot like God spoke, but maybe there wasn't a Big Bang. However, at the moment, the Big Bang is the prevailing theory despite many efforts to avoid it. Yeah, arrogant ego church people too. I think many people who call themselves atheists are really agnostic. They don't promote the idea that God does not exist. They just don't have enough evidence to believe that God does exist. Yeah, there's all these. One of the most promising theories to avoid the Big Bang has to do with quantum physics, which isn't much different from Fred Hoyle's theory of spontaneous generation, that as space expands, the density decreases, so out of this loss of density, the universe wants to maintain a constant density, so it pops things into existence out of the vacuum. And the quantum theory regarding the avoiding the Big Bang is that at a certain point after the Big Bang, but before there was matter and energy and gravity and all that, there was this quantum field in which matter and energy came into existence spontaneously. Gee, from the quantum field, which is, by the way, not a thing but a mathematical equation. So our universe was created by math. And even some of the adherents of that theory question where'd the math come from. The only place we know where mathematics comes from is a mind. Are we simply proving that God made the universe? And then there's Hawking radiation. As near as I can tell, because black holes emit X-rays. We're told that nothing can escape from a black hole, not even light. But X-rays are a form of light. Electromagnetic radiation. Hi, Howard. Tora says meow. Supposedly, certain atoms will split into two particles. Certain particles will split in two, and one falls into the black hole and the other escapes as an X-ray. Because the huge gravitational forces of the black hole split it in half. Information does escape from black holes, but information is not physical. Information is what you input to your computer. The computer doesn't make information. Information implies a mind. To at least set up the computer so it can give you information. Black holes, I guess it's still a prevailing theory that things in the center get squeezed so hard that they emerge in a different dimension. Okay, folks, dimensions are not different places. They're different directions in which things can move. And I'm not satisfied with that. Okay, you squeeze things down to the center of the black hole and they can't go anywhere else, so they have to emerge in a different dimension, perhaps as a white hole. I'm not satisfied. I suspect that what black holes are really doing is converting mass into energy. And at a certain point, the energy is strong enough to overcome the gravitational field of the event horizon, and we get X-rays. Of course, Stephen Hawking, in his PhD thesis, posited that the universe began in a black hole. Quasars. Oh, quasars. I love quasars. When I was studying astronomy at the junior college, our final, not exam, homework was to read about a wacko theory that just is not accepted, like Velikovsky, with the colliding worlds and all, worlds in collision, and do a presentation on it. Or we could come up with our own wacko theory. But if we wanted to do that, we had to present an outline and get approval. So I did. And I came up with a theory, because quasars are among the most distant objects in the universe. Excuse me. And they're much brighter than they ought to be at that distance. We have no way of knowing how such a distant and tiny galaxy could emit so much light. Yes, I like Velikovsky. I'll get to that. Well, I posited that the universe really does consist of just our galaxy, or maybe just the local group. But the universe as a whole is moving so fast, it would have to be faster than light. And that as we move, as our tiny universe moves, and I chose a helical spiral as the direction in which it moved, we would be looking back at our own past rather than actual distant galaxies, and that the quasars, therefore, are very close to the Big Bang. So they're actually what I termed little bangs. That was my wacko theory. And they are very distant. They are closer to the Big Bang. So it isn't that wacko. Now, Velikovsky, yeah. Many people don't know that Velikovsky wrote more than Worlds in Collision. One of my favorite books of his is Oedipus and Akhenaten, in which he argues that the Greek myth of Oedipus is really a retelling of the life story of Akhenaten. And he presents good evidence that as a child, Akhenaten, a son of the king, was banished. He was sent to distant relatives in Persia to be raised because he was physically deformed. So he couldn't be part of the royal family. But as an adult, Akhenaten returned, killed his mother, and became pharaoh, even though he was not the firstborn, or maybe he was the firstborn. I'm not sure about that. But in the Greek retelling, Oedipus is horrified to learn that he's married his mother. But in ancient Egypt, it was done all the time to preserve the royal lineage and the right to rule as perceived by the priests and the public. Okay, see you soon, Gil. Velikovsky wrote many books. He was criticized. I've got cat hair in my mouth. He was criticized for relying on historical accounts and myths and legends. So he wrote some books in which he used scientific studies, published peer-reviewed studies, primarily in archaeology and paleontology, but also in geology to support his theories. And Worlds in Collision is fascinating when you realize that ancient people, and not that ancient, BC, but as recent as 600 BC, were terrified of the planet Mars. It is entirely possible that Mars used to pass close to the Earth before it settled into its current orbit. And Venus as well, but primarily Mars, would cause death and destruction on Earth. And the passing of these planets might explain the changes in the calendars. Maybe the orbit of the Earth was originally 360 days, just like the old calendars. And the ancient people were not stupid. They added a few days to the calendar because they knew that the year really was longer than 360 days. But maybe at one time, it really was only 360. What time? I've been on for over an hour. Wow. I'm so glad to have my wonderful chat room. But I'm going to have to give in to the urge for coffee and make some instant coffee real quick and refill. So hang on, I'll be back. coffee. Okay, the kettle is on. It'll take a couple minutes. Now, I used to be able to just reach up and grab my copy of Worlds in Collision and the other Velikovsky books, but no. While I was out with a broken hip, somebody decided that it was a good idea to make a mess of everything I own and call it helpful. To organize my things. Oh, this book isn't on the shelf. Let's find a shelf where we can shove it in. It wasn't on the shelf because I kept it on my desk so I could reach out and grab it when I wanted it. Let's see. Humming the Dragnet theme. Yeah, I love that. It's easy to hum. Anyway, I gotta recycle some coffee while the kettle's spoiling. It'll only take a couple minutes. What are you cats doing? Getting fur all over my bed, huh? Sweetie. Cats. Can't live with them, can't live with them. The tea kettle's calling. Storage. Give it up. Okay. Oh, okay. Look at Tora. What is it with cats? They get in front of you and sit down and then complain and move them out of your way. Yes, you, Tora. You're a pest. And there's no going out. It's 36 degrees. No need opening that door, okay? No. She did her little vocalizations. She doesn't meow, she chirps. Just like the bobcat that she's got to be part bobcat. Okay. I'm scanning the bookshelf to see if. Yeah, I put the Velikovsky books somewhere else. By the way, you can kind of see right there. That's the top of a bookcase. that has some books in it that I'm beginning to organize again. Someone moved that bookcase from that wall over to the corner of the mud porch where my pantry cupboard belongs, where food will stay cool and not get spoiled by being too close to the heater. I finally got someone to help me move it back to where it belongs. But when she put the books back in, she, put in books that didn't go there and mixed up the ones that do go there. And she even put my Bible in there. My Bible was on my desk because it belongs on my desk. Coffee. I'm going to have to quit being lazy and start making real coffee in the morning so I can just pour another cup when I want it. Oh, well. Velikovsky. Brilliant man. Now, I have little use for Sitchin. He started out well, but then he went off into La La Land. He really doesn't, or I guess he's passed away. Sitchin didn't know those languages. Oh, hi, Zeno. Zeno Maror. That must be a character from something I've never read or a video game I've never played. Hi, everyone. I was going to grab a book. Oh, yeah. I got to show you a book. Where'd I put it? Got it. This is from the shelf that I've organized. America, BC. By Dr. Barry Fell. This is the old edition. The new one has a dark brown cover, but it's really the same. And it is about inscriptions in North America, mostly carved into rocks. It has photos, but what I really love are the charts of ancient alphabets. Let's see. Now, this guy is no dilettante, amateur, or kook. Harvard professor Barry Fell, he has passed away, but has uncovered evidence, including astonishing new discoveries, to replace those legends with myth-shattering fact. Illuminating, authoritative, and enhanced with over 100 pictures, America, BC describes ancient European temple inscriptions from New England and the Midwest that date back as far as 800 BC. And so on. This book should be widely read. America, BC. It's based primarily upon rock carvings of actual alphabets and words in ancient languages of Europe and the Mideast from before the Aztecs, before the Maya. before the Vikings and the Spanish explorers and the Portuguese explorers. That establish that people who knew how to read and write lived in North America while we thought there was nothing but a bunch of nomadic peoples following the herds of bison and elk. Yeah, pre-Columbian, way pre-Columbian, 2,000 years pre-Columbian. Wait a minute. Yeah, more than 2,000 years. I have to check myself when I do math in my head because I tend to do things like putting the decimal point in the wrong place. Wow, morning everyone. We have a Don Burnham here. Wow. And since many of you came in afterward, after I announced it, my recipe for vegetable beef soup is on my blog. Let's see if I can type that without messing it up. I have seriously neglected my blog for too long. It's supposed to be about Philip K. Dick, but I put my soup recipe up there. It's on Blogspot because I don't have to pay for it. I get to use a blog for free. Google Blogspot. Okay. No photos because the soup was long gone when I wrote out the recipe. By popular demand, the recipe is available. Graham Hancock. I liked Graham Hancock, but some of his recent work is kind of, what's the word? Shaky. It's on shaky ground. However, now the stuff about Egypt is amazing. His book about the Ark of the Covenant, good research. I just can't conclude that the Ark is in Ethiopia. Could be, probably isn't, but we don't know. And he seems sure that it is. There's no doubt that the Ethiopians believe that they have the Ark of the Covenant. Halloween grog recipe. Grog, that's pretty much diluted rum. At least that's what it was on the old sailing ships. They dilute the rum with some hot water and call it grog to keep the sailors warm without getting them drunk. Graham Hancock stopped smoking grass. Well, he should start up again if that's what it does to him. I tried pot when I was in high school. I just don't care for it. It could have been sent down there, yeah. But I suspect that the Ark is somewhere else. The tradition among many Jews is that the prophet Jeremiah hid the Ark in a cave somewhere. That's possible. On the other hand, Jeremiah escaped to Egypt. You know, kind of north of Ethiopia. And there was a Jewish colony on one of the islands in the Nile. This was before the Aswan Dam, so there wasn't a real lake. It was not a temple. The building there was not anything like the temple, but it was a place of worship. Could be. It's possible. But you've got to keep in mind that anybody who touched the Ark was zapped and died. You'd have to have the wooden poles and 4 people at least to carry the darn thing. And that reminds me, there are these idiots who say, well, if it was made of gold, it'd be so heavy they couldn't carry it. Bozos. The Ark was made of wood and plated with gold. It wasn't solid gold. Gold is heavy. Those gold bars they show you in the movies and the guy just picks one up. You don't just pick up a gold bar. They're heavy. Yeah. They didn't think the lid was solid gold. No, it was plated. I'm not sure that it was only the lid that was plated, but it wasn't that heavy. But it must have generated electricity somehow. Although they say the one guy who touched the Ark got a horrible disease and it took him a while to die. That's weird. And they don't tell you. All they tell you is that the 2 stone tablets of the 10 Commandments are inside. Well, there's also a bowl of manna, which is kind of strange since the manna always evaporated within a few hours. People who didn't pick it up in the morning and eat it were out of luck because it would be gone. And I gotta come up with the name again. Aaron's rod. You know, the one that he threw down and it turned into a snake. And then the Egyptian priests threw down their rods and they became snakes. So Moses threw down his, and it turned into a snake and killed all their snakes and ate them. That's actually a common magician's trick in India today. They can get a snake to seem to be just a wooden rod. When they toss it down, it wakes up and slithers away. Maybe Jeremiah pawned the ark. You never know. For gambling money. I like people with a sense of humor. Hi, Jan. Well, I've been starting early, so I guess you aren't really super late. Last week I couldn't get on at all. Yesterday I couldn't get on the internet. I could do the messenger with my phone, but I resent having a tiny keyboard. And, and it wouldn't do anything that like Facebook or YouTube because, there's no internet. We were in the middle of a massive storm. Even my weather app wouldn't update to give me news about the storm. But I did get a phone call. Anyway, let's see. I've been on for an hour and a half. I don't know where I put Worlds in Collision. That's probably not where I put it, but where some helpful person put it. Oh, another favorite book of mine is staring at me. Forbidden Archaeology. I got a little more than halfway through and it became so dense that I had to put it down. All these things. And then there's, I can't remember the author's name. The book is called Buried Alive, and it's about Neanderthal skulls. It's written by an orthodontist who examined the museum pieces. Neanderthal skulls primarily. And he said they've been putting the lower jaw on wrong. These Neanderthals looked more like modern humans than you would think from the illustrations that the artists provide because they're putting the lower jaw on wrong. I can't get through Graham Hancock's books anymore. I got the one about diving in the ocean and I couldn't read it, so I quit buying his books. Yeah, Michael Cremo for Forbidden Archaeology. He had a co-author for the original book, but I guess he's on his own now. But yeah, there are all kinds of things that you just don't hear about that are in the museums, but they're in the basement. They aren't on display. And even researchers in the fields of archaeology and paleontology and anthropology have trouble getting access to them. I might as well bring up Darwin. He had a basic theory of how we get let's say horses with different sizes and colors and so forth. Moths that under certain conditions, the birds eat all the white ones, so all we have are black moths. But then conditions change, and the birds eat all the black ones, so all we have left are white moths. And of course, the famous finches have beaks that are shorter or longer. Sorry, my mic's cutting out. My internet is like really unstable. Anyway, Darwin just doesn't work. Even the neo-Darwinian theories don't really work. Joe Rogers podcast with Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson. Okay, yeah, Hancock has some good info. I just think his books kind of aren't as good as the shoot, my connection is unstable. Sorry for the typos. Unstable. Yeah, I'm probably not going to go much longer. Anyway, the Cambrian explosion kind of does in all the Darwinian theories of evolution. Apparently, all the modern body organizations, body forms, appeared in the blink of an eye about 6 million years. Some say 4 million, some say 8 million, but in geologic time, that's the blink of an eye, and that's when all the modern phenotypes appeared, basically all at once. The creatures with exoskeletons, the creatures with endoskeletons like us, our bones are inside. The fish, the mammals, the birds, the whatever, the reptiles, they just poof, appeared. $6 billion years is nothing in the history of, was it 6 billion or 6 million? I think billion. Anyway, whatever. And it isn't the only explosion. We do see evolution in horses, but you know what? Eohippus, they've finally given up. Eohippus, the dawn horse, they've even changed its name. It is not the ancestor of horses. However, in Mongolia, you'll find some of the original Przewalski's horses, the primitive horses that are quite distinct from modern horses. Well, you know what the difference is? Okay, it must be 6 million years. My brain ain't working. Yeah. Oh, I thought the Earth was 5 billion years old. Yeah, so it's 6 million for the Cambrian explosion. You know why horses are different today? Human beings bred them and selected the ones they wanted for the features they wanted. Same with dogs. They're really the same as wolves, except they aren't because humans bred them. Humans selected the dogs for the colors, sizes, and shapes they wanted. That is evolution, but you know what? It's guided. It isn't random mutations or random variations, in Darwin's word, moderated by the survival of the fittest. And Darwin actually said survival of the strongest. And there's, by the way, there's a subtitle to Darwin's theory of evolution. It's something about preserving the superior races. And I'm sure Darwin did not intend for the Nazis to latch onto his theory to justify their crimes, but they did. In fact, in 1905 in Africa, there were massacres. They were overseen by a Dr. Goering, Hermann Goering's father. And the purpose of these massacres was to preserve the superior specimens, to purify the race of Africans. Social Darwinism it isn't even scientific. You know, like, I feel guilty if I shoplift because some distant ancestor on the African plain was severely punished for shoplifting at the local Walmart. That's social Darwinism. That we are nothing but our genes, not the Levi's, the DNA. We're the product of, on the one hand, the culture that we inherit, that we learn as we're growing up, and on the other hand, our genetic makeup. So we can't say that a murderer is evil. He's just following the dictates of his DNA. Oh, I'm sorry, we still have to segregate him from polite society. I'm on the fence about the death penalty. I don't like it, but I have seen cases where if I was on the jury, I could vote for the death penalty. One in particular, Robert Alton Harris, I think that was in the 90s. Well, the trial was. The murder was probably 20 years earlier. The way our justice system works, march on the nation's capital outside the building and go to jail without even being charged for 8 months. Yeah, some people committed crimes and needed to be locked up, but others did not. Well, anyway, but murder someone, and yeah, you sit in prison for 10 or 20 years and eventually die of old age because you haven't even gone to trial. You've been charged, but your lawyer keeps delaying things. Anyway, Robert Alton Harris carjacked 2 teenage boys in the takeout line at a fast food place. Kept them in the car, kidnapped them, drove to a secluded location, killed them, and sat there eating their hamburgers with their dead bodies in the car. I could give him the death penalty. I wouldn't feel too bad about that. It was bad enough, but to sit there eating their fast food, sitting in the car with their dead bodies, that is so inhuman. It's like, let's put this man out of his misery. He certainly can't live among us. But in general, I don't like the death penalty. Oh, yeah, the Zodiac killer through DNA? Last I heard, a man claimed that he thought his father had been the Zodiac killer. There was a man in prison for being the Zodiac killer, and he confessed to several murders. He confessed to murders that he never got charged with. You ought to consult Walter Bosley on that. That's where I get my info. But I'm with Walter. There was more than one Zodiac killer. Oh, cool. You found out through Walter. Good. But one man was convicted of being the Zodiac killer, and he was imprisoned. Yeah, Vallejo. I spent 5 miserable months in Napa back in the 70s. There was a drought that was hotter than Hades. But anyway, I have some familiarity with the area. I had to go to Vallejo to get a part for my car because the auto parts stores in Napa didn't have the part I needed. Long, boring story. My oldest brother, who drank himself to death, lived in Glen Ellen for a while. We went to the beach in Sonoma, and I realized then that I can go to the beach during the day when it's all sunshiny. Up there, not down here in the southern beaches, I burn and peel, and I could die. I could get that bad a sunburn. Wow. I'll have to check in with Walter on the Zodiac killer. He's convinced that a specific murder in the Inland Empire was committed by the Zodiac killer, and they replaced, probably years later, but the crime scene has been replaced by a parking lot on the campus of a college. Yes, I went on one of his tours. That's where I met Walter for the first time, and I also met Dr. Joseph P. Farrell and Scott D. Hart, and of course, the Mothman guy. I'm sorry, I should know his name without thinking, but it's slipped away. Wow. The beach in Israel, was that beach on the Dead Sea? No, not John Keel. The guy who's still alive. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Andy Colvin. It just popped in. He has all these books about the Mothman. Humongous thick books. I can't get through them. But, there are strange creatures. We don't know what they are. And it is not crazy to want to find out what they are. I'm all for searching for Bigfoot, Sasquatch, the old man of the mountains. I'm all for investigating the Mothman and UFOs. There are strange things in the sky, and we don't know what they are. Now, I'm certain that at least the upper echelon of Navy officers know darn well what that Tic Tac was. They just put out that video because people were fussing about UFOs and secrecy. Here, let's toss them a bone. That'll keep the peasants happy. It's like that BC cartoon not BC, The Wizard of Id. The king and the wizard are standing on the parapet looking down at a mob that's rioting and storming the castle. And the wizard says, the peasants are revolting. And the king says, they certainly are. Let's see. In the 1600s, reports of huge birds, Sasquatch and Mothman were fairly commonplace. Hi, Jason. You're coming in at the end, by the way. I'm kind of winding down. There are tales of the Thunderbird that are quite recent, even in the 20th century, of these huge birds carrying off small animals and even children. In one tale from the 1800s, from I forget which tribe, but it was Native Americans, the indigenous people, I think it was in Ohio. This giant bird was snatching little Indians, little people. So the chief or the medicine man, kind of the same thing, same position, went up on the mountain and found the Thunderbird's nest and killed it by lighting a huge fire in the Thunderbird's nest. Yeah, there are some huge birds. Of course, a condor or a bald eagle can appear to cover a whole highway if it's one lane each way. That would be a good place for a bird to glide. A long straight highway. The updraft from the warm pavement would give the bird extra lift. Oh, Jason, you're late. And I started almost on time this morning. I was only 10 minutes late. Anyway, there are weird things in this world that we don't understand, but these scientists have all the answers. Only the answer changes every couple of years. There's still plenty of scientists who say that the famous Lucy fossil is not a human ancestor at all, but simply an ancient chimpanzee. Well, you see, they have to wait for the old guys to die, because if you change the theories in science, their textbooks won't be sold to college students, and they don't want that. They want to keep selling books to make money. Can't change the textbooks until the old guys die. Hi, Oswald. Oh, you watched another stream? What was it? Maybe I can watch the replay. I'm tired of watching the little snippets of political stuff. I don't know anyone who believes that there was no corruption in any election. But that's what you get on the network news. Free, fair, and clean, and no corruption. Well, excuse me, in one county in Arizona, 17,000 people voted twice, and it was not caught, and their double votes were counted. They aren't telling us who got the votes, but I think we can imagine. In Georgia, there were thousands of mail-in ballots that had no envelopes. How do you mail in a ballot without an envelope? Let's see, Alexander Dugin. Coverage of the wild Russian sociologist / occultist Alexander Dugin by John Brisson, who is familiar with Bosley and an interesting researcher. Well, Oswald, you have a wrench. You're allowed to post a link to the video if your internet connection will let you do that. You'd have to open YouTube twice, go to your history, and find that video. Thank you. Awesome possum. Now, I can't. My internet is cutting out here and there anyway, but I'll bet I can copy the link if I use the other mouse button. No, not open. Copy link address. And then what I do is compose an email and send it to myself. Hey, what are you doing, you evil computer? All right. There we go. That way, even if I lose it, Gmail has my email even if my computer bites the dust. So I can get I often email things to myself to preserve the record. All right. Yeah, I'm creeping up on 2 hours here. Once again, the soup recipe is on my blog. It will be a part of... Sorry, my nose is unhappy. The barometric pressure keeps changing. Storm, sun, storm, sun, storm. Gives me a headache, too. Jason's being evicted? I'm so sorry, Jacob. Jason. We will pray for you. Let's see. I'm just trying to scrape up another $50 to keep the lights on. I think times are hard right now. Riddle of the Sphinx, armored skeptic. Yeah, well, we have chemtrails too, Jason. This is California. But we get the chemtrails on sunny days in the summer. This year, winter hit early. It's barely autumn, and we're getting winter storms and freezing temperatures. And by freezing, I don't mean 50 degrees, I mean 30 degrees. Wash away the chemtrails. And we are no longer under a severe fire hazard condition. So now I can use my charcoal grill if I want. They were actually banning charcoal grills even in your private home. You didn't even say realtor? Well, voice to text is always a coin toss. Anyway, I don't want to talk about money, but there are places in California where they have a captive audience where gasoline for your car is $7 a gallon. Now I know if you're in Europe, you've always paid much more than that, but those are taxes. We've historically had gasoline real cheap. I remember the mid 1970s, around 75 or 6, the price went up to 75 cents a gallon, and I didn't think I could afford it. And now it's most places are at or close to $5. Well, Gil, you aren't in California. California has the climate and geography that's really great, but our state government sucks. We tried to recall the governor. I've been calling him that since Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Terminator, the governor. Our governor is so corrupt, and yet he won the recall election. And you tell me elections are not rigged. At the very least, he decided to give families with children a bunch of money a month before the voting. I don't have children under 18, so I'm out of luck. But prices are rising due to the inflation caused by higher demand caused by free money. Yeah, Schwarzenegger. His solution to the drought was to stand at the dam shouting, "We need water," instead of telling the environmental agency, "Turn on the pumps. We don't need to protect the Delta smelt. It's an invasive species that's driving out trout and salmon, and it's only about an inch long. It's a bait fish. I guess you could put one in an aquarium in your living room, but it doesn't belong here. It's not native. Nope. And now the cities have drawn so much groundwater out that the farmers who were fortunate enough to have well water aren't getting any water. And that great canal, I forgot the name of it again. The canal from Northern California to Southern California, it's running dry. In Northern California, they are so backward on flood control that there's whole bridges and buildings just wash out every winter, and they rebuild, and they don't rebuild smarter, they rebuild the same way, and they don't have decent flood control. They're just letting water go out to the ocean because that's natural and environmental, while the farms in our Central Valley that could feed the whole world, no problem, don't have water. You know why? If they drive out the small farmers, corporations like Monsanto and Bayer, it's actually Bayer, it's German. Well, they can buy up all the land and build more cities, or grow their GMO crops with chemical fertilizers and chemical pesticides and poison us all. Well, fracking has a bad name now, but it's been going on since the beginning. They've been fracking for at least 100 years. When a well seems to be dry, whether it's gas or oil, they pump in water. And they get more. Now, fracking, of course, comes from the idea of fracturing, because there are places where they can't get the oil out of the rocks or the gas trapped in pockets, and it isn't cost effective to actually drill down to break the rocks. It's more efficient to pump in water to fracture the rocks. But it's been going on since the beginning of oil wells, probably in the 1800s. Yeah, and the stupid medfly, I don't know how it was for you, but all over California they had helicopters and small aircraft just spraying everything with pesticide to kill the medfly, a fruit fly that could destroy crops. Okay. Wouldn't you want to use the pesticides on crops? Why do you need it in downtown Los Angeles? I was in a small city called Orange, in, of course, Orange County, California. My dog started going bald. I had to do some major work on that yard to scrape off the pesticide that was causing my dogs to go bald. Salt water from old wells for dust control. The Ogallala Aquifer under most of the Great Plains has a huge sheet of bedrock under it, and they can't get to the water underneath. Interesting. Yeah, the Great Plains are rather dry. I couldn't believe Colorado for a Philip K. Dick festival twice now. We flew in to Denver, And all I saw from the plane was the peaks of mountains. But once we were on the ground, it's flat. It's so flat I got dizzy looking at the horizon. And it's so parched. The landscape is so dry. And both times I noted we drove by something that smelled really nasty. It turned out they were processing sugar beets, into sugar. Oh, they can't get to the water over it? Well, anyway, I don't know. I like Colorado. And the elevation was nothing for me. It's about the same elevation as where I live. A mile is 5,280 feet. My house is probably around 4,800, but parts of town are higher. So we're a mile high. The huge sheet of bedrock is over the water. Yeah, that's what I thought the first time I read that. Well, you know, I'll bet somebody with a little ambition and common sense could go around it. Dig a hole from outside the bedrock and then tap the water, but they might be rather overwhelmed by the flow of water coming out. Rocky Mountain High in Colorado, yeah. Uh-huh. Well, shoot. We're going on 2.25 hours. Colorado looks like a good place, by the way, for those giant thunderbirds to fly. There was no 2020 Philip K. Dick Festival because of COVID. There will be an informal gathering next March, but I won't be able to attend. I have hopes for 2022. It was amazing to get to meet the people who do so much to preserve and promote the legacy of Philip K. Dick. I got to meet Ted Hand, and apparently that's his real name. I shouldn't complain. My last name is Dick. And I got to see Bill Cyril, whom I met in the 70s, but barely remembered. He had to jog my memory. Dune remake. Yeah, the critics apparently are praising the new Dune remake, directed by Denis Villeneuve. Spectacular scenery, that's his thing. He's an artiste. I'm sure the landscapes are amazing. Okay, I get to. Oh, hang on. Get my mouse to wake up. I have to moderate Howard's comment. Come on, where'd it go? Cardinal Sin hit it. I was going to let it in. Dickheads are fans of Philip K. Dick. Oh well, it doesn't matter, Howard. I got to read your comment. No, you're okay, Howard. It's just that YouTube might take a different view of it, but you can do duck heads, make it 2 words, and then YouTube won't slam me for a bad word. And I'll know what you mean. I have candy corn, pure high fructose corn syrup. And don't let them tell you that high fructose corn syrup is evil. It's sugar. It's okay, Cardinal Sin. You probably protected us from the YouTube algorithm. Anyway, sugar is sugar. Don't eat as much sugar. But it's okay to use corn syrup, whether it's high fructose or not. Just don't eat so much sugar in total. And that means quit buying McDonald's. Do you know that a McDonald's burger, well, calorie-wise, probably has more sugar than meat? The hamburger buns have sugar in them. The sauce has sugar in it. Yeah, honey is much healthier than sugar, but I don't like it in my coffee. I don't like to put honey in my coffee. It's okay in a cup of hot tea, but not my coffee. And I do eat candy corn. See if I can hold it so that the camera can see it without my dropping it. Candy corn. I do eat it, and it's basically high fructose corn syrup. Well, now, I disagree with the salt Nazis. If you don't get enough salt, you'll die. And there's plenty of research to suggest that salt does not elevate your blood pressure. So people on high blood pressure should not what's the word? They shouldn't limit their salt intake so drastically. They just shouldn't. Processed foods, yeah. Now, I love corned beef and pastrami. They have are they nitrates or nitrites or both? Anyway, supposed to be very bad for you, but I don't eat them every day. Maybe once or twice a year, I'll have a pastrami sandwich. I might even make it a real Reuben this time. I've discovered that sauerkraut is not so bad. It was just the way the school cafeteria used to cook it that made it taste like, it tasted kind of like ammonia. I'm not sure exactly what they did to it, but they'd buy it in these gallon cans, dump it into the pot at 7 or 8 in the morning and cook it till lunchtime, which was anywhere from 11 o'clock to noon. So it was canned to begin with, so it was already cooked, and then they'd cook it for hours. It stunk too. It smelled like cat shit all over town. We knew they were serving sauerkraut because we could smell it on our way to school. Yeah, yeah. Some people still salt their meat to preserve it. They generally wash the salt off before they cook it because it will taste too salty. Well, yeah, they put high fructose corn syrup in salad dressings. Don't let it scare you off. Just don't eat the whole box of Oreos or 10 Hershey bars. Sugar is sugar. Your stomach and your guts break it up, and when it hits your bloodstream, it's all the same. Yeah. In Sweden, they salt fish and then bury it. There are places, I think in Norway, where they actually just air dry the fish on racks because it's so cold there that the fish are first kept fresh by the cold and then preserved by drying. And they're actually shelf stable. They have the consistency of leather until you soak them in water. And I've seen cooking shows where they cook those dried fish and they're very tasty. They don't have salt or anything else added to them. They're just frozen and dried. They bury eggs in ash until they turn to green gelatin and eat them in China. Oh yeah, they call them 1,000-year-old eggs. They're usually about 2 months old. Freeze-dried fish, yeah. Freeze drying is amazing. You can't do it in your freezer at home. It isn't cold enough. And it generally isn't that dry either. By the way, while I'm lecturing you about Oreos, here it is. I have discovered lemon flavored Oreos. As much as I love chocolate, I love the lemon even more. But I don't sit there eating the whole box. I have one or two, and not every day. Yeah, I think that's what made President Bush vomit at a fancy dinner. It's either Japan or China. He started to eat something at the dinner table and it came back up. And of course, it hit the headlines on all the media. I think it was 1,000-year-old egg. I wonder if they did that to him on purpose. It was H.W., the first George Bush, the one before Clinton. Read my lips, no new taxes, and then a couple months later, oh, we're raising your taxes. That George Bush. Do you know that 4 of the last 6 presidents were left-handed? Bit of trivia I learned the other day. Let's see. I think Reagan was left-handed. I know Obama was, and I think Clinton was as well. I forget exactly. I'm sure about Obama, though. Left-handed people are a small minority, and yet they keep getting elected as president, so I guess they aren't oppressed. Lutefisk. I used to know what that was. It's some kind of fish. You don't want an Oreo pickle, Oswald? I don't either. But when I was pregnant, I had a kosher dill pickle with my banana split. They switched you over from being a southpaw? You were left-handed? I think I'm ambidextrous. I write with my right hand, but I do many things with the left besides writing. See, when I was very young, I got a head injury that might have, I was like maybe 2 years old, or not quite 2, but I remember because it was so traumatic. And that probably changed me so that I started using the right hand. Yeah. Yep, the nuns would take a ruler and whack your left hand if you used it to write. That was in the Dark Ages, early 20th century. Interesting. Well, I have a cousin who writes with his left hand, but he paints with his right hand. And mixed dominance, as they call it, or being ambidextrous, is not all that uncommon. But it's even more highly pronounced in people who were switched. I'm at hours now. 2 cups of coffee in. Although I finished the first cup before I started. I'm cutting down on coffee because my tummy keeps crying out, and there's only so much Alka-Seltzer in the world. Mom played a joke on her sister by giving her left-handed knitting needles. Yeah, my handwriting is legible, but I don't think my handwriting is pretty by any means. But it's better than Phil's. Even I have trouble sometimes deciphering what he wrote. Yeah, a lot of athletes are lefty but play sports right-handed. There's a lot of batters in baseball who can bat left-handed or right, depending upon which pitcher they're facing. You see, it's hard for a right-handed pitcher to pitch to a left-handed batter, and vice versa. Well, anyway, I'm down to rambling, and it has been 2.5 hours. I'm just amazed that my internet hasn't cut out completely. I expect it to be better next week. Yeah, I don't play baseball mostly because either I was the last one picked for the team or they had an odd number of people, so I had to sit out. The first time I got up at bat, I hit a pop fly, but of course someone caught it. And I cannot abide slow pitch softball. Like, how am I supposed to hit something that's coming straight down? The pitcher managed to make it come straight down and hit the bag, the home plate. It isn't a bag, excuse me. Thank you, Gil. I've noticed when I'm trying to learn clarinet, and I emphasize trying, I'm better at the left-handed keys than the right-handed ones. Sometimes I hold it this way with the left hand on top, sometimes this way. I'm experimenting. Testosterone. Hand dominance brain hemisphere association isn't as strong in a lefty. Huh. Well, your right brain is more a picture person or picture oriented processor. Your left brain is more into words. I'm trying to read up. Yeah, that was the amazing thing about Jimi Hendrix. He didn't have a left-handed guitar, but he was left-handed. So he just played left-handed on a right-handed guitar. And apparently, he could have reversed the strings, but he didn't. So all the Jimi Hendrix impersonators have to learn to play a right-handed guitar left-handed, or else enough people in the audience will say, hey, you're doing it wrong. Yeah, you could string the guitar backward, but he didn't. He just flipped it over and played it left-handed. I, I, I just can't imagine, but he taught himself. I don't see any reason why you couldn't string a guitar backward. It's just that he didn't. Yeah, upside down. I understand. I have a guitar around here somewhere. I haven't put the strings back on it because, okay, I found the guitar parts in a box of hardware instead of out on the table where I put them because I was about to string my guitar when I broke my hip. But I haven't found the other things I need to make sure the strings are secure and aren't going to pop off, because the bridge is Mickey Mouse. Someone drilled some holes in a piece of wood and screwed it onto the guitar. That's why I got it at a yard sale for $10. Oh, the eyes on the body are smaller on the bottom than on the top. I guess that must be electric guitar. Mine is acoustic. Yeah, the thing is, most right-handers grew up playing right-handed guitar. They have to relearn everything to do it left-handed. Anyway, I gotta go. It's down to rambling and rambling. And I'm just thankful that my wonderful chatters are all here and that my internet held up for the most part. Let's see. Thank you all for listening and have a great day. Yep, my keyboard didn't. There, here we go. Thank you, Gil. Thank you, Howard and Witta and Oswald and everybody. Jason, we're praying for you. Remember to pray for Jason. who is being evicted and needs a chunk of money to either pay up and not get evicted or find a new place. And I'll catch you all later. Going to cook the soup. Okay. Hope you enjoy the soup. Bye, Jan. Bye, Howard. Bye, Witta, Gil, Oswald, Jason, and everyone. And Tora says purr.